Hi, my name's Dave, and I'm going to try to tell the story of the rebuilding of this end up. I've owned this boat for 40 years now, and it's time to do some serious work to it. It's been repainted a couple times over the course of the years using standard one-part paints. I think this time we're going to do something a little more amazing. Plan is to sand it down, coat it with an epoxy primer, and then I think we're probably going to use an automotive finish. I don't see any reason to fool around with the boat paints. The bottom line is the bottoms of these boats get scratched up, so what? No big deal. And I can just as easily repair a automotive finish as I can the boat finishes, and I think I can get a brighter, glossier finish, probably at least as durable, if not more so, to the conditions these boats live in, which is living outside in the weather. This boat has never been seriously damaged over the course of the years. There is one small repair that we had to do a number of years ago where the bolt started pulling through, and in those days my repairs were probably not quite as sophisticated, and I just literally put it back together, glassed over the fracture on the outside surfaces, and I don't think I did any work on the inside, but I really don't recall. That was a long time ago. The only other damage is I had a dagger board delaminate, and having read on how to repair that, I may actually undertake that at some point in time, so I have a spare, because what I did was replaced it with a dagger board from a newer boat that with a little modification to the trunk was able to fit. And it's a bigger, heavier, not bigger, same dimension, length and width, but it is thickness wise is a little heavier duty, and I kind of like that because it just seems like a good idea to me. So things that we've done so far: literally stripped the hull, still got a few more rivets to drill out. Interesting enough, in reading on drilling rivets, I did buy the Cobalt drill bit, 7/32, and also use the grinder method, and both work. The interesting thing about the grinder is it tends to mar up the strap or the fitting a little bit. Not a big deal, but it does. Here's the mast after being sanded, and I'll get some still images of this a little higher resolution. Interestingly enough, there is electrolysis that's gone on under the stainless parts. What I didn't see that I thought was interesting is the holes themselves don't seem to be enlarging. There's certainly pitting around the outside surface of the hole, which certainly weakens that area, but it's not enlarging the hole, so I'm not sure if the rivet would pull through or not. Don't care now that I've seen them. Some of these holes, like here, this is the top of the diamond stay. My plan is to go to a new strap with 3 holes in it, so that it's even stronger, because this is a critical fitting. If you pull this tang, only bad things happen. Under the mast hound, there is again pitting from the contact of the stainless, and but again, no enlarging of the holes. I doubt seriously if this would have pulled out, which is one of my big concerns about getting this boat going again. But what I will do after I rebuild this mast is I'll put some kind of tape, probably just plain old electrical tape, underneath to separate the stainless from the mast. And at this point I have sanded the mast. Again, I don't think this video will show that detail, but using both 80, 100, and 120. Didn't really notice any big difference between using any of those grits. I think the biggest issue is that by sanding it, you remove any of the oxidation and loose material that builds up over the course of the year. I'm going to investigate getting it re-anodized as an option. I think that's probably going to be impractical, so probably we'll do the acid etch and zinc chromate type primers, and then we'll probably spray it black or whatever, and I'll investigate that and show that as I go along. Here are the rear and front beams, and you can see again signs of pitting from the old straps, but certainly nothing that tells me that any of these would have actually pulled out. Some of the worst pitting you see are from old holes that have pitted out over the course of time with no fitting on them at all. Once that anodizing's been killed, then I think the all kinds of things start happening. Remove the traveler cleats. I've already made a modification of that part. I'm really looking forward to taking the Dolphin Striker apart and finding out what's gone on underneath that. That could be a scary situation, but I think there might be ways to deal with it if that has turned out to be an issue. An option might be to literally rotate the beam 90 degrees and re-drill it. I really don't want to buy another beam, and I don't see any advantage to putting another used one in that would have the same issues. So after 40 years, you got to come up with alternate solutions. So already new goodies showing up, new lines. This is huge. Going to a new mast rotation setup that'll be above the boom. Crew is going to really appreciate that. New deck hatches, new shock cord all around. What else on there? Here's some of the tools we used yesterday. Started out trying to remove the oxidization with the Dremel tool, and did a lot of it with that, but finally decided that was too slow and tedious, so went to a wire brush on the drill. The drill I used was a variable speed corded, and that allowed me, when I was using the 7/32 bit, cobalt bit, to easily drill the bits. Interestingly enough, the first rivet I drilled spun, so then I started using the grinder with a cutoff blade, and that's also what I use to cut the traveler with, or at least started with it, and then had to finish with a hacksaw because I couldn't get into it completely with the cutoff saw. It wasn't long enough to get all the way through. Fortunately, a long time ago, I had put some kind of thin plastic on the straps, and that kept oxidization between the straps and the beams to non-existent. There is oxidization underneath the between the aluminum blocks. Not anything serious, but that'll take some cleaning up. Strip everything off the mast. Still have to punch some rivets through on this. This had been sealed reasonably well, but I'm sure over time the silicone had degraded. Here's the inside of the mast hound. Again, you can see a little bit of oxidization. And you can also see, I think you can see, the grinder marks when I was using the grinder to remove those rivets. Certainly the grinder is probably as fast or faster than the drill bit, but once I got the hang and then since none of the other rivets spun, it was just as easy to get it with the drill bit, and it didn't mark up the casting or the strap. Lots of bits and pieces. We'll clean them all up before they go back together. But first, everything's coming all the way apart. We'll take these beams all the way down and figure out whatever we do to the mast, we'll probably do to these beams as well. New trampoline is here. This thing's gorgeous. Got this from Slow. Quite an upgrade to the old tramp that I had. Let's see if I can get this. Yep, there we go. Sewing looks first class. Certainly the rope edges and whatnot are done really well. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this pocket. I'm not used to that on my boat. Get to improve the jib setup on when we rebuild this. So we're going to include all the latest and greatest fixes that you all have come up with over the course of 40 years. And my plan is, once this boat is back together and I'm confident that we have the structural strength that's required, I like to do point-to-point racing and probably get up in the San Juan Islands in Washington State, probably back up to Puget Sound where I'm from. I currently live in Scappoose, Oregon. And for the last few years, I'm a rafter. And so have been doing multi-day rafting, getting ready for another trip on the Grand Ronde River here soon. And just a small boat kind of guy. Got a 16-foot Air Lion, 16-foot Air Jag. Somewhere back over here we also have a, see this thing, got a Kevlar canoe that we've had. We've had lots of different canoes over the years. This is just the latest and certainly the lightest. It's 18.5 foot, it's a gorgeous boat. And as you can see, I have a standalone shop. I also do lots of woodworking, particularly in the wintertime. Fair bit of tools sitting around here, including bandsaws, sanders, certainly a big table saw sitting underneath all this junk, and then big planers, drill presses, chop saws, you name it. Lots of big lifting equipment around here for all kinds of different purposes. So certainly I have the tools to do a serious rebuild. I just have been reluctant to do it. I was thinking I'd actually sell this boat finally to some young guy who would do all this nifty work, but apparently young guys are few and far between these days, so it'll have to be me. So we'll build this boat back together and send it down the road for another 40 years.